They stopped calling Grandma when they no longer needed her, but the day she stopped paying their bills, they finally realized what she had been doing for them all along. Hi, my name is Eleanor Mitchell. I am 76 years old. For 39 years, I worked as an accounting clerk at a small family-owned insurance company in Cleveland, Ohio. I spent my entire life making sure other people's numbers added up, but when it came to my own family, I never kept score. That was my mistake. My husband Richard died 11 years ago. After he passed, I raised myself to become the kind of grandmother who never said no. My daughter Susan was 48. My son Michael was 45. Between them, I had 5 grandchildren, and I loved every single one. When Susan's husband lost his job, I paid their mortgage for 6 months. When Michael needed money to repair his house, I gave him $20,000. When my oldest grandson needed tuition, I paid the first semester. When my granddaughter's car broke down, I bought her another one. I never asked for the money back. I never asked for thank you cards. I never even kept receipts. Whenever my children said, "Mom, we'll pay you back," I always smiled. You don't have to, because I believed that's what family was for. At first, my children called me constantly. "Mom, how are you? Mom, did you eat? Mom, do you need anything?" Then, something changed. The calls became shorter, then occasional, then almost disappeared. Susan stopped calling every Sunday. Michael stopped coming over. My grandchildren became busy. School, college, work, friends, relationships. I understood. At least, that's what I told myself. My 75th birthday was the first time I realized something was seriously wrong. I woke up early. I made coffee. I baked an apple pie. I waited. No phone calls. By 10 a.m., nothing. Noon, still nothing. At 7 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. I smiled. It was a text message from Susan. I opened it. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry, crazy day. Love you." That was it. No visit. No cake. No call. Just a text. I stared at the screen, then placed the phone down. I told myself, "Don't be dramatic, Eleanor." But deep inside, something hurt. That evening, someone knocked on my door. It was my neighbor, Margaret Wilson. She was holding a small cake. "I saw you sitting alone." I smiled. "You didn't have to." "I know." She placed the cake on my kitchen table. Then she said, "Happy birthday." I hugged her, and for the first time that day, I felt remembered. A week later, Susan called. "Mom." "Yeah. Can you help me with something?" I smiled. "Of course. The mortgage payment is due." I understood immediately how much. She told me. I transferred the money. "Thank you, Mom." "You're welcome." Then she hung up. I sat quietly, looking at my bank account. It was the same pattern every month. Mortgage, car payment, phone bill, insurance, school expenses, credit cards, medical bills. I was paying for things. My children didn't even know I was paying because I had never told them. One afternoon, Michael called. "Mom, I need a favor." "How much?" He laughed. "You don't even know what I need." "I know you." He needed money for a business payment. I sent it. He thanked me, then disappeared again. I smiled, but something inside me was beginning to change. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was simply tired of being useful, but not loved. Tired of being remembered only when a payment was due. Tired of being called Mom when someone needed money. And Eleanor, when I asked how they were doing. Then came Thanksgiving. I cooked for 2 days. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, pumpkin pie, everything my family loved. I set the table for 8 people. At noon, I received a text from Susan. "Mom, we're not gonna make it." I stared at the message. Then another one arrived. Maybe next year. I looked at the 8 plates, 8 chairs, 8 glasses, and 1 empty house. I didn't cry. Instead, I packed the food into containers and gave it to neighbors. That evening, I sat alone. The television was on. Families were laughing on the screen. I looked at my phone. Nothing. No call. No message. Nothing. The next morning, Michael called. Mun. Yeah. Did you pay the electric bill? I froze. What? The electric bill. Why would I pay your electric bill? He laughed. Mom, you always do. I closed my eyes. You're right. I'll send it. Thanks. He hung up. I stared at my phone, then opened my banking app. There it was. For years, I had been paying it, and he didn't even know, or perhaps he knew perfectly well. That was the moment I made a decision. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't send a message. I simply stopped. The following month, Susan's mortgage payment didn't go through. Michael's electricity bill wasn't paid. The credit card payment I usually covered wasn't made. The tuition transfer never arrived. And for the first time, my family had to handle their own bills. I thought someone would call. Maybe Susan? Maybe Michael. Maybe one of my grandchildren? Nobody did. Instead, 3 days passed. Then 5. Then 7. Still nothing. On the 8th day, my phone rang. Susan. I answered. Hello. Mun. Her voice sounded nervous. What's wrong? And the mortgage payment didn't go through. I said nothing. Mom, I know. Did you forget? No. Then I stopped paying it. Silence. What? What? I took a deep breath. Because you stopped calling me. She laughed nervously. Mom, what does that have to do with the mortgage? I looked out the window. Everything. You're being ridiculous. No, I'm serious. So am I. Then she said something. That broke my heart. Mom, you can't just stop helping your own daughter. I whispered. I care. She became angry. You promised. I promised to love you. I never promised to finance your life. She hung up. That evening, Michael arrived at my house. He didn't knock gently. He pounded on the door. I opened it. Mom, what's going on? Nothing. You stopped my payment. Yes. What? Because I decided to. He stared at me. You can't do that. I just did. But you have the money. I smiled sadly. That's exactly why. What does that mean? It means you never wondered how I was doing. You only wondered whether I had money. He became quiet. Then said, That's not fair. I looked at him. Neither was being treated like a bank. Michael left angry, but I didn't chase him. For the first time, I let him walk away. The next morning, something strange happened. I received an envelope. It was from my bank. I opened it. Inside was a document I had completely forgotten about. A financial statement. It listed every recurring payment I had made over the previous 7 years. I sat at the kitchen table and started adding mortgage payments, car payments, insurance, tuition, medical bills, credit cards, utilities, loans. I calculated everything, then stopped. My hands went cold. The total was nearly $500,000. I had spent that much helping my children, and they had never once asked how much it cost me. I leaned back in my chair. I wasn't angry. I was sad because suddenly I realized something. They hadn't stopped calling because they were busy. They had stopped calling because they believed I would always be there. They had confused my love with unlimited access. That afternoon, my granddaughter Emily called. I hadn't heard from her in months. Grandma, Emily, can I come see you? I smiled. Of course. She arrived 20 minutes later. She hugged me tightly. I missed you. I missed you too. She sat down, then asked, Grandma, did Mom and Dad make you angry? I looked at her. What? Because they're fighting. About what? Money! I sighed. Emily looked down, then whispered, I know you paid for everything. My heart stopped. What? I know. How? Dad told me. I stared at her. How long have you known? About a year. And you never said anything. I didn't know what to say. I reached for her hand. Emily. She began crying. I felt guilty. What? Because everyone kept asking you for things. And I knew you were lonely. I looked away. That hurt more than anything. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared. Of what? That if I said something, the family would fall apart. I squeezed her hand. Sometimes things have to fall apart, so you can see what was holding them together. Emily looked at me. Grandma. What? I need to tell you something. What? She reached into her bag, pulled out a folder, and placed it on the table. I found this in Dad's office. I opened it. Inside were copies of bank statements, but these weren't mine. They belonged to Michael. I looked at the numbers, then at Emily. Why are you showing me this? She whispered. Because, Grandma, Dad wasn't just using your money to pay bills. He was hiding something from you? I turned another page, and my heart stopped. There were transfers. Large transfers. From my family account. Money had been moved into an investment account, an account I had never heard of. I looked at Emily. Where did this money come from? She shook her head. I don't know. Then she pointed to one name, written on the final page. Eleanor Mitchell Family Trust. My blood ran cold, because I had never created a family trust. And yet, someone had created one. Using my name, they thought Grandma had finally stopped helping them. But when Eleanor opened the secret family trust she discovered her children had been using her name for something she had never agreed to. Hi, my name is Eleanor Mitchell. I am 76 years old. For 39 years, I worked as an accounting clerk at a small family-owned insurance company in Cleveland, Ohio. I had spent my entire career checking numbers, but the numbers in that folder didn't make sense. And the more I looked, the worse everything became. I stared at the document. Eleanor Mitchell Family Trust. My name, my signature, my address, my social security information, everything looked real. But there was one problem. I had never created it. I looked at Emily. Where did you find this? In Dad's office. When? Yesterday. Why were you looking through his office? She hesitated. Because I was looking for my college paperwork. I turned another page. There were deposits, thousands of dollars, then tens of thousands. And besides some transactions, I recognized my own bank account number. My stomach tightened. Emily. Yeah. Did your father take money from me? She looked down. I don't know. Tell me the truth. I think he did. I closed the folder. For years, I had trusted my children. I had believed that every dollar I gave them was going towards something important. A home, education, medical bills, their families. But now, I wasn't sure anymore. I called my old friend Margaret Wilson. She answered immediately. Eleanor, can you come over? Are you okay? I don't know. She arrived 20 minutes later. I showed her the documents. She looked at them. Ben looked at me. You need a lawyer. I know. And a financial investigator. I know. And you shouldn't tell your children anything yet. I stared at her. What? Because if this is what it looks like, they may already know you're investigating. The next morning, I contacted an attorney. His name was James Carter. He was recommended by a former coworker. I brought him every document. He read everything carefully, then asked me one question. Mrs. Mitchell. Yeah. Did you ever sign a power of attorney? No. Did you ever authorize your son to manage your finances? No. Did you ever establish a family trust? No. James leaned back. Then someone used your identity. My heart sank. How much money? He looked at the statements. We need to investigate. Give me an estimate. He hesitated. At least several $100,000. I closed my eyes. The number was almost the same as the amount I had spent helping my family. But now, there was another question. Where had the rest gone? That afternoon, Susan called. Mom. Yeah. Michael told me you hired a lawyer. I stayed silent. Mom, how do you know? He told me. What? I don't know. I looked at the folder. Are you worried? She became quiet. Then said, maybe. What? I need to talk to you. Come over. She arrived alone. No husband, no children. She sat across from me. Mun. What? I need to tell you something. I waited. Michael started the trust. My heart sank. What? He said it was for the family. Did you sign anything? No. Did you know he was using my information? She began crying. I knew there was an account. That's not what I asked. She looked down. Yes. My voice became quiet. You knew. I'm sorry. For how long? Almost 3 years. I stared at her. 3 years. 3 years. She had watched me pay bills. She'd watched me worry about money. She had watched me believe. My family simply needed help, all while knowing something else was happening. Why didn't you tell me? She cried. Because I was afraid. Of Michael. Of losing my family. I nodded slowly. You should have been more afraid of losing your mother. She looked at me. I'm sorry. I shook my head. I don't want your apology. What do you want? The truth. She wiped her tears. The trust was supposed to be an investment account. For whom? Everyone who... Michael. Me. Your grandchildren? Even my grandchildren. She nodded. Michael said he was building something for all of us. I looked at her. With my money. She didn't answer. That was answer enough. That evening, Michael came to my house. He didn't look angry this time. He looked scared. Mun. Sit down. He sat. I placed the documents on the table. His face changed. You found it. I stared at him. So it's true. He looked down. Yes. How long? 3 years. How much? I don't know. That's a lie. He looked at me. Maybe. I pushed the statements toward him. Where did the money go? He took a breath. Investments. What investments? Real estate. Under whose name? He didn't answer. Michael. He looked at me. Some under mine. Some under Susan's. And some... He stopped. Some under whose name? Yours. I froze. You put property in my name. Yes. Without telling me. I was protecting the family. No. I shook my head. You were protecting your... He became emotional. Mom, listen. No. You don't understand. Then explain. I thought you'd die someday. The room became silent. He continued. I thought the house would be sold. Your savings would be divided. Everything would disappear. So I created something. For the family. I looked at him. Without my permission. I was going to tell you. When? He couldn't answer. After I died, he looked away. I whispered, maybe that's why you stopped calling. He looked at me. What? You didn't need to know how I was doing. You just needed to know I was still alive. He started crying. That's not true. Then why did you stop visiting? I was busy. Why did you stop calling? I was busy. Why did you only call when you needed money? He couldn't answer. I stood. Get out. Mun. Get out. He left. For the first time in my life, I didn't chase my son. I didn't call him. I didn't apologize. I didn't send money. I simply closed the door. The following week, James uncovered more information. The trust wasn't just an investment account. It contained 7 properties, 2 houses, 3 rental properties, a small commercial building, and 1 piece of land. Combined value, nearly $1 million. I stared at the report. How? James explained. Some of the money came from legitimate family investments. Some came from your accounts. And some transactions appear to have been made without authorization. I asked the question I was afraid to ask. Was my son stealing from me? James answered carefully. We need a forensic audit. Then he showed me something. A property deed. My name appeared on it, but underneath was a signature. My signature. Except it wasn't mine. I knew immediately. That's forged. James nodded. I thought so. My heart sank. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was fraud. I returned home that evening and opened the old drawer where I kept my personal documents. Everything was there. My passport, my bank records, my old tax papers. Then I noticed something missing. A copy of my driver's license. I hadn't seen it in years. I suddenly remembered. Michael had asked for it. He said he needed it to add me to an insurance policy. I had trusted him. The next morning, I called the bank. There were additional accounts I had never opened. My name was attached to 3 of them. I sat silently as the bank representative explained everything. Then she said, Mrs. Mitchell, there is one account we haven't discussed. What account? A savings account? How much is in it? She paused. Approximately 70,000 yen. I almost dropped the phone. Whose account? Your name. I never opened it. The representative became quiet. Then we need to speak with our fraud department. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the amount, $780,000. Where had it come from? Was it my money? Was it money from the properties? Or was there another secret? At 2:17 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello, a man's voice said. Mrs. Mitchell? Yeah. You don't know me. Who are you? My name is Robert Lane. Why are you calling? Because I worked with your son? My heart started racing. Michael? Yeah. What did you do with him? I helped him set up the investments. I sat up in bed. Then you know about the trust. Yes. Was it legal? There was a long silence. No. My heart stopped. What? Mrs. Mitchell, you need to know something. What? The trust wasn't created to steal your money. Then why? Because Michael believed you were going to change your will. I froze. Change my will? Yes, to leave everything to someone else. I whispered. Who? Robert took a breath. That's the part you don't know. Who did Michael think would inherit my money? He answered. Your granddaughter, Emily? I stared at the dark room. Emily, the same granddaughter. Who had brought me the folder? The same granddaughter. Who had told me the truth? Then Robert said something that made everything even more confusing. Mrs. Mitchell, there's another problem. What? Michael wasn't the person who started the trust. I froze. Who did? Robert lowered his voice. Your husband. My breath caught. My husband died 11 years ago. I know. Then how? Robert replied. Because the trust was created 12 years ago. Silence. Before Richard died. I couldn't speak. Robert continued. And there's a document in that trust that your husband left specifically for you. The next morning, James and I went to the bank. The trust records were released. Inside was a sealed envelope. On the front was my husband's handwriting for Eleanor. I touched the envelope. My hands trembled. Richard had been dead for 11 years. Yet somehow, he had left me one final message. I opened it. The first sentence made my heart stop. Eleanor, if you're reading this, then our children have finally discovered the money. I hid from them. I looked at James. He said nothing. I continued reading. I didn't hide it because I didn't trust our children. I hid it because I knew exactly what money could do to a family. Then came the sentence. That changed everything, and I need you to know that the money was never meant for our children. I turned the page. There was one final paragraph. It was meant for the person who would love you when you had nothing left to give. I stared at the words. Then I saw a name. Not Susan. Not Michael. Not Emily. Not even my name. The name written at the bottom was someone I hadn't spoken to in 22 years. And suddenly, the entire family secret made sense. They thought Grandma had stopped paying their bills because she was angry. But the name at the bottom of her husband's final letter revealed why he had secretly protected nearly $1 million, and who had truly been there when Eleanor had nothing left to give. Hi, my name is Eleanor Mitchell. I am 76 years old. For 39 years, I worked as an accounting clerk at a small family-owned insurance company in Cleveland, Ohio. I had spent my whole life believing that being a good mother meant giving everything, even when nobody asked how much it cost me. But that morning, I finally learned the difference between being needed and being loved. I stared at the name at the bottom of Richard's letter. My hands became cold. There it was, a name I hadn't spoken in 22 years. Margaret Wilson? I looked at James. My neighbor. He nodded. That's what the document says. I couldn't breathe. Margaret had lived across the street from me for almost 15 years. She had brought me a birthday cake. She had driven me to appointments. She had sat beside me after Richard died. She had helped me shovel snow. She had never asked me for money. Never. And now, my husband had left her name inside a secret trust. I read the letter again. Richard had written, Eleanor, you may wonder why Margaret's name is here. She was there the night I almost lost everything. She helped me when I had nothing. And more importantly, she helped you when I was no longer able to. I stopped reading. My eyes filled with tears. Richard continued, the money in this trust isn't a reward. It is a promise. If our children ever forget that family is about showing up, let this money remind them. Then came the final line. Give it to the person who proved that love doesn't always share your last name. I closed my eyes. Margaret. All those years, she had been there. When my children were busy, Margaret came. When I was sick, Margaret called. When I was lonely, Margaret knocked. When my birthday was forgotten, Margaret brought cake. And I had never realized. Richard had noticed all of it. I called Margaret. She answered immediately. Eleanor, can you come over? Of course. 20 minutes later, she walked through my front door. She looked at me, then at James. What's happened? I handed her the letter. She read it. Her face became pale. Oh, Richard. You knew. She shook her head. No. Not about the trust. No. Not about the money. No. She looked at me. I swear, Eleanor. I believed her, because Margaret had never been interested in my money. She had been interested in me. I asked, why did Richard leave this for you? She sat quietly, then said, because he asked me for a favor. What favor? Before he died, he asked me to look after you. I stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? He made me promise. I laughed softly. Everyone kept making promises in this family. Margaret smiled sadly. Some promises were meant to protect you. And some were just Meanwhile, James continued investigating the trust. He discovered something surprising. Richard had established it 12 years ago. 1 year before he died, the original amount was nearly $400,000. Through investments, it had grown to more than $780,000. And Richard had placed strict conditions on it. The money couldn't simply be withdrawn. It had to be used for Eleanor's care, emergency family needs, education for grandchildren, and charitable causes chosen by Eleanor. But there was another condition. If any family member attempted to access the money without Eleanor's permission, their access would be permanently removed. I stared at the document. So Michael knew about this. James nodded. Apparently, and that's why he created his own trust. Possibly. I understood. Michael had discovered that Richard had protected money, but he didn't know the full conditions. So he created another arrangement. Using my identity, he had tried to control the money. Instead, he had exposed himself. That afternoon, I called Susan and Michael. Come to the house. They arrived together. Neither spoke. I placed the documents on the table. Michael stared at them. You found everything. I nodded. Susan began crying. Mun. I raised my hand. No. She stopped. I'm going to speak. They listened. I spent years paying your bills. Not because I had to, because I wanted to help, but somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing me as your mother. You started seeing me as a resource. Michael looked down. I know. No, you don't. I pointed toward the documents. You forged my signature. He closed his eyes. I know. You opened accounts. I know. You used my information. I know. And you stopped calling me unless you needed something. Michael whispered. I'm sorry. I looked at him. Do you know what hurt the most? He looked up. The money. Number. The fraud? No. Then what? I said quietly. You stopped asking whether I was okay. The room became... Susan started crying. Mom, I was wrong. No. I should have visited. I know. I should have called. I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I looked at her. I already do. She stared at me. But forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences. She nodded. I understand. I turned toward Michael. You will repay every dollar you took. He nodded. And you will cooperate with the investigation. Yes, if the law says you committed a crime. He looked at me. I understand. Your sister will too. Susan nodded through tears. I continued. But I won't destroy your lives. Michael looked confused. What? Because I'm your mother. And because I don't want revenge. I paused. I want responsibility. Then I told them something they never expected. I am not paying your bills anymore. Michael nodded. I know. No mortgage, no car payments, no credit cards, no utilities, no tuition, nothing. Susan wiped her tears. We understand. Good. I looked at both of them. Now you get to learn something I learned late. What? How to stand on your own. The next months were difficult. Michael sold one of his cars. Susan canceled expensive subscriptions. They changed their lifestyles. They started budgeting. They stopped buying things they couldn't afford. For the first time, they had to live within their means. And strangely, they became closer. Not because I paid for them, but because they finally understood what money had been doing to their family. Emily continued visiting me. One afternoon, she asked, Grandma, are you angry at Mom and Dad? I thought for a moment. No, not even after everything. I'm disappointed. What's the difference? I smiled. Anger wants someone to suffer. Disappointment wants someone to become better. She thought about that, then hugged me. Eventually, Michael came to my house one evening. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for help. He simply knocked. I opened the door. Mom! Yeah? Can I come in? I smiled. Of course. He entered. He was carrying something. A small notebook. What is that? My budget. I laughed. Your budget. Yes. He sat at the kitchen table. I've been learning how to manage money. I'm proud of you. He looked at me. I didn't understand before. Understand what? That you weren't supposed to make my life easy. You were supposed to teach me how to live it. My eyes filled with tears. Your father would have liked hearing that. Michael smiled. I think I finally understand him too. Months later, the legal investigation was completed. Michael had to repay a large portion of the money. Some accounts were closed. The fraudulent documents were reported. But because he cooperated fully, the situation was resolved without destroying the entire family. Susan also repaid what she could. It took time, but they did it. Not because I forced them, because they finally understood. Responsibility matters. Then came my 77th birthday. I woke up expecting nothing. Old habits die hard. I made coffee, sat by the window, and waited. At Jodan. Someone knocked. It was Margaret. She was holding a cake. I laughed. Again. She smiled. Tradition. Then another knock. Emily. Then Michael. Then Susan. Then my grandchildren. The house filled with people. Someone brought flowers. Someone brought breakfast. Someone was arguing about who should cut the cake, and I realized, for the first time in years, nobody had come because they needed something. They had come because they wanted me. Later that afternoon, I gathered everyone around the table. I told them about Richard's trust. Michael already knew. Susan knew. But my grandchildren didn't. I explained what it was meant for. Then I announced my decision. I'm giving most of it away. Everyone became quiet. To charity. I nodded. How much? Enough to help families who are struggling. I looked at my grandchildren, and I'm creating education funds for every grandchild. Emily smiled. What about Mom and Dad? I looked at Susan and Michael. They don't need inheritance. They need independence. Michael laughed. Fair enough. One kept a smaller portion. For myself. Not because I was selfish, because I had finally learned that saving money for your own future isn't selfish. It is responsible. I had spent years giving away everything and calling it love, but love should never require that you disappeared. One evening, Margaret and I sat outside. The sun was setting. She looked at me. Are you happy? I thought about it. Yes, really, really. Even after everything. I smiled. Especially after everything. She asked. What? I looked toward my house. My children were inside. My grandchildren were laughing. The kitchen was full of noise. And for the first time, I wasn't wondering whether they needed me. I knew. They loved me. I answered, because now I know the difference between being needed and being loved. I learned something. After 76 years of life, you can give someone everything, and they may still take you for granted. You can pay their bills, and they may never ask how you are. You can sacrifice your comfort, and they may never notice. But sometimes, the strongest lesson isn't a lecture. It isn't an argument. It isn't revenge. Sometimes, you simply stop. Stop rescuing. Stop paying. Stop fixing. Stop making life comfortable for people who refuse to value you. And then, you let reality teach them. That isn't cruelty. That's a consequence. My children once believed I would always be their safety net. They were wrong. I wasn't their safety net. I was their mother. And there's a difference. A mother can love you without financing every mistake. A grandmother can help without sacrificing her entire future. And a family can forgive without pretending nothing happened. Years later, the family trust became something completely different. It helped pay for scholarships. It helped struggling families. It helped children whose parents couldn't afford college. And every year, I received letters. One letter came from a young woman who had received a scholarship. She wrote, "Your gift changed my life." I smiled because I finally understood. The money had found its real purpose. It wasn't meant to keep my children dependent. It was meant to give someone a chance to become independent. I kept Richard's letter inside my bedroom drawer. Sometimes I read it, especially the last line. Give it to the person who proved that love doesn't always share your last name. Margaret never asked for a penny. Not once. But she had earned something far more valuable. She had earned my trust, my friendship, my gratitude, my family. And Michael, he eventually started his own small financial consulting business. But this time, everything was legal. Everything was transparent. And whenever he helped a young family create a budget, he told them, "Don't confuse love with financial dependence." I heard him say it once. I laughed. "You finally learned." He smiled. From the best. Susan changed too. She started visiting me every Sunday. Not because she needed anything. Sometimes we didn't even talk. We just drank coffee. One Sunday, she looked at me. "Mom." "Yeah? Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you wish you'd stopped paying sooner?" I thought about it. "No." She looked surprised. "What?" "Because I learned something." "What?" Giving wasn't the mistake. Giving without boundaries was. She smiled. "I'll understand." My grandchildren grew older. They went to college, started careers, built their own families. And whenever they needed help, they didn't say, "Grandma, can you pay?" They said, "Grandma, can I ask your advice?" That difference meant everything. I am still Eleanor Mitchell. I'm still 76. I'm still the woman who worked behind a desk, checking numbers. But now, I check something else. I check whether the people around me are giving as much love as they receive. And if they aren't, I don't punish them. I simply stop carrying what belongs to them, because sometimes the loudest consequence is silence. No argument, no revenge, no screaming, just no more rescue. And when the rescue stops, people finally discover what they were taking for granted. My children stopped calling Grandma, so Grandma stopped paying their bills. And in the end, the bills weren't what mattered. The money wasn't what mattered. The trust wasn't even what mattered. What mattered was that my family finally learned that love should never be measured by what someone pays for you. It should be measured by who shows up, who listens, who remembers, who stays, even when there is nothing to gain. And sometimes, the best thing you can give someone isn't another dollar, it's the opportunity to stand on their own. The end. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, never take the person who always helps you for granted. Sometimes, the person paying your bills isn't asking for money back. They're simply hoping you'll remember to ask, "How are you?" before asking, "Can you help me?" See you in the next story.